After over 25 years of the Anno franchise, Ubisoft Mainz is heading to Italy. In the upcoming latest installment of the franchise, Anno 117 Pax Romana, players will have the chance to build their very own Roman Empire. Anno 117 will be the 8th game in the long-running franchise and the first since Anno 1800, which was released in 2019. We got a chance to go hands-on with Anno 117 Pax Romana and see some of the new features coming in the game. This game will have all the bells and whistles that players are used to seeing from the franchise. However, building a Roman Empire will be more dynamic than in previous iterations, as player choice seems to really be at the forefront of Anno 117. This is apparent in multiple areas of the game and its systems, from the campaign to any sandbox mode. At the media preview event, the Anno 117 team talked about wanting to give players a more robust campaign experience. This includes giving players plenty of options and choices. This starts right from the beginning, as players are able to choose between two different characters with two different backgrounds and differing stories that they play through. Players will also be able to choose an emperor to support throughout the story and their own advisor, who they can decide whether to listen to or not. In addition to choosing your leader, there are two major zones in Anno 117 where players will build their empire. Latium, which is inspired by Italy and what people think of as a traditional Roman city of the era, where you serve the emperor, and the other is Albium, which is a Celtic-inspired province that stands in defiance of joining the empire. More importantly, unlike in Anno 1800, players will be given the choice of their starting zone in Pax Romana. Players will also be deciding on a variety of cultural aspects in local versus global loyalty. Players will have options to support the Roman Empire and their beliefs, or the Celtic culture and their beliefs. All of these player decisions will lead to differing playstyles and city planning along the way. This also means that there will be multiple stories for players to experience within the campaign and hopefully add some more replayability beyond just sandbox. Ultimately, there are 8 main attributes within Anno 117. Players of the series will be familiar with most of these attributes. The more common attributes are income, population, happiness, fire safety, and health. 3 other attributes will really hone in on the player choice and flavor, along with the dynamics of your empire. They are knowledge, belief, and prestige. Unfortunately, within our preview, we were not able to see the full potential of prestige, and interaction with it was very limited. Knowledge and belief, however, seem to be really where player choice is showcased. New to Anno 117 is a discovery tree that will use the knowledge attribute. This works like any research tree within the strategy genre. Players must build buildings and add buffs to gain more knowledge that works like research points. Players will then use the knowledge to unlock features within the discovery tree. There will be 150 discoveries to start in Anno 117 for players to choose from. So how you choose your discoveries will dictate how you build your empire. However, it was noted that if a player's game goes on long enough and players build wide enough, they will be able to discover all of the discoveries within a single game. There are also 3 main branches of the discovery tree: military, civic, and economic. Economics will focus on storage and trade. Civic will focus on religion, part of the belief attribute, diplomatic options, and public services. Military, of course, will focus on the military aspects of the game, which include new ship models and fortifications. These discoveries consist of various things such as buildings, buffs, and units. Some examples of these that we saw in the hands-on were increased ship speed, warehouse storage, and repair cranes. Now, knowledge will not be the only thing players will need to unlock all these discoveries. There will be research gates that are sort of like challenges that players must complete to unlock the next section of the discovery tree. The belief attribute is the other new major attribute in Anno 117 Pax Romana. Religion is the base for the belief attribute, and these will give players bonuses. Players will get to choose a deity per each island they inhabit within their empire. However, each deity can also have smaller shrines for other deities in the same island. Each deity has a different set of buffs that they grant to the island that worships them. The players, like with generating knowledge, players will need to build temples, shrines, and other buildings to generate belief. Ultimately, the more belief a player's people have in their deity, the larger the buff is granted. Each island can have a different deity, and thus the belief attribute is divided into local and global beliefs. Local is within each island, and global is within the player's empire. These different deities will also play a role in the cultural aspects of Latium, Roman, versus Albion, Celtic. So players' belief in specific deities will play a role in the diplomacy they can enact. All of these aspects and choices will play a vital role in shaping each player's empire. Player choice doesn't stop there though, as it seems to be expanded to some mechanical parts of the game and how players will build their cities and armies. Anno 117 Pax Romana added more modular features that players can utilize. The main modular features are the Governor's Villa, shipbuilding, and the river and mountain slots. These modular features will really allow players to be creative with their city building in terms of both beauty building and or optimization, whatever fits you. Each island has to have a Governor's Villa for a player to build anything on the island. For players familiar with Anno 1800, the villa seems to work like the palace or the hacienda from the Seat of Power and Seeds of Change DLCs. As players gain more prestige, they can build more villa modules and expand their villa. All the modules must be connected to another module to be built. These modules also seem to come with specialist slots, so the more modules you build, the more slots you have. These specialists give buffs either to the island or specific buildings within the villa's area. During my playtime, I was only able to build a few modules on my villa, so the exact range and area of effect for the villa still needs to be seen. This was really the only engagement with the prestige attribute during the preview that we had access to. So the full effect of the prestige attribute and all the ways that the villa can be utilized will be something that players will have to see and experience for themselves. The next modular feature is shipbuilding. In previous Anno games, players had to build various ships for each of their tasks. While players still have a diverse fleet for trade and combat, how it is obtained has changed. Each ship will have a basic shell, and players will then pick and choose components to place within the ships. These components will give each ship a different set of stats. Players can choose to add an archer tower to improve combat, or maybe some rowers to increase ship speed. The basic shells have a specific number of cargo slots, and then as players unlock the ship modules through the discovery tree, they can be mixed and matched within the ships. All of the choices will allow players to really make an interesting set of ships with a variety of bonuses tailored to their playstyles. The last main modular feature that I want to mention is one that I think will really change how players build their islands. That is, the river and mountain resources are now designated to mountain slots and river slots. That's right, no specialization. Players will not get to choose where or how many slots are located on each island, but they can choose where they wish to place the resources. We were limited in our time for the preview and didn't get to see all of the available options that player will have for their resources. We were able to see the functionality of these slots. Being able to choose not only what you mine or extract from each slot, but also where you choose to mine or extract resources is huge and should make building more manageable. This will change how players can do optimization and also whether a player is more interested in beauty building for their island. This is really apparent with making an aqueduct, as it requires a mountain slot to obtain water and then an endpoint fountain that needs to be placed both near production and residential buildings to provide water, fire safety, and any buffs that come with that. So being able to choose any mountain slot can really make it easier and or more efficient to run these aqueducts to specific locations within your island. This will also allow players to change out their resources as needed as the Empire expands and more advanced resources become higher priority. Now, it will be interesting to see how this feature works as players go from early to mid to late game, as one of the building challenges is having to build to accommodate where resources are located and available versus being able to select which resources you want and where is most convenient for the player. These modular features should allow players to pick and choose the design and functionality of their islands and empires. Giving players more choices, options, and general flavor really seems to be at the forefront of Anno 117 Pax Romana. However, with all of these options and just in general comes balancing. And Anno 117's balancing seems to be multifaceted. Another feature for players to pick and choose from are the residential needs. Players do not have to fulfill all residential needs to be able to upgrade their population to the next tier. Instead, they just need to meet a specific threshold for each residential need category. Residential needs are also grouped into specific categories such as food and amenities. While not all of these residential needs are needed to upgrade a resident, each does provide something such as additional income, population, or happiness. So providing as many as possible provides more value for the player and your residences. Residential needs having a threshold for upgrade doesn't mean players should just skip out on producing other items. It does seem that these thresholds will require players to fulfill more overall needs per population tier. This means that while you can skip at first just to get your population upgraded, eventually players may get stuck and be forced to double back and add those needs that they skipped in the first place, as the next tier will require much higher thresholds. Building buffs are another feature that has been implemented, where some of your production and other buildings give area of effect buffs to nearby residents or buildings. This was approached both in terms of how Rome of this time period had to build its cities, such as you may find a bakery down the street from a house, and also allows for more creativity when you're building your island overall. I know as an avid Anno 1800 player, I usually put quite a bit of my production or farms in specific locations, both in terms of optimization, but also not to make my city look ugly. Having a giant smokestack right outside someone's window isn't the best for any beauty builder or anyone who just wants it to make sense. Farms are a really good example of this, as lavender farms provide happiness to all nearby buildings. So now, having to choose whether to incorporate lavender fields within residential areas can be challenging, but also who wouldn't want to walk outside every day to see a beautiful field of purple flowers? Not all the buildings have positive effects, just like the last game, as some do only bring negativity, and others have both positive and negative effects. Stacking too many production buildings in an area could lead to more disasters, such as fires or riots. Are you going to be okay with receiving more income or population that comes at the expense of happiness in a key residential area? These building buffs will really force players to think about how they explicitly want to build their cities, especially in terms of interconnectivity with production and residential. The integration of a full-on pause button and or pause time and or active pause, or whatever you want to call it, is coming to Anno 117. This means now when players pause their games, they continue building and performing actions. Any players of Anno 1800 know this was a tricky ordeal and a much asked about feature, as players could only pause their game but not perform any actions while it was paused. This will make managing islands and the different areas easier for players, as they're able to pause and check things without anything going out of whack. There is some balance in the sense that if you do build too much while on pause, there's definitely the potential to crash and burn your economy, and do it very quickly. I was fortunate enough not to crash my economy while playing around with this active pause feature, but I had some moments of uncertainty and can see how a player can proceed to do this, whether by overspending or just breaking some supply chains, or even just creating new supply chains that really aren't ready to work. Anno 117 Pax Romana is going to be a very large and expansive game, much like other Anno games in the series. I would say that my play sessions only got players to around early mid-game. If that's so, there will be so much more for players to explore and learn as they get to the full release. I came away from both my media previews impressed and excited. However, I am intrigued to see how all of these features and changes, especially from that player choice and balance, will play out as players get to mid and late game, and even very late game. This means that while land combat was announced to be coming back to Anno 117, I had no time to even mess with any of that, or really any combat at all. There are obviously multiple games in the Anno franchise, but Anno 1800 was and has been considered the most popular and successful Anno game on multiple fronts. It was the largest supported Anno with 4 seasons of DLC. It was also the first Anno to be brought to console and for more new and first-time players to enjoy. It is interesting to see how the Ubisoft Mainz team has taken quite a few features that were implemented over the course of Anno 18's post-launch time and expanded them to be integrated into Anno 117 Pax Romana. Not to say that maybe some of them didn't exist before in previous games, just like land combat. However, for many players, Anno 1800 was a starting point for them in the Anno franchise, so it was easier to see the connections with that game. Anno 117 will be releasing on console at the same time as the PC version, with cross-play and cross-progression, allowing a new subset of players to experience the game and hopefully find their entry point into the series. This is to say, all of these player choices, options, and changes at points did make the game feel like it had lost some of its challenging aspects for a person who has hundreds of hours in Anno. However, when experiencing these points in my play sessions, there were also many points where something else became more challenging, even if something became easier, and I had to make some of my own balancing decisions. As much as some of these features can be taken as helping players, they also set up the Anno team to expand the game down the line. Modular components, optional needs, player choices, discovery trees, selectable resources slots, all really allow the team to build on what they've set forward in Anno 117 without having to add completely new components as they did with the 4 seasons of support for Anno 1800. Overall, there is still much left to be seen, especially when it comes to the late mid and late game. Still, I walked away impressed and excited with what I could play in my time with Anno 117 Pax Romana. The future seems bright for Anno players and the Ubisoft Mainz team as the series makes player choice a new priority going forward. Anno 117 Pax Romana is set to release in winter 2025 with crossplay and cross-progression on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, Amazon Luna, as well as PC through Steam, the Epic Games Store, and Ubisoft Connect.